Welcome to the Alternatives Mason podcast. With host Brittany Mason, Chief of Staff at Banrion Capital Management, you'll learn how to build alternatives knowledge brick by brick. Banrion Capital Management uses technology to help independent advisors scale and educate themselves on alternative investments. And since education is such a big piece of what we do, we are excited to kick off the series to dive into the nits and grits of the alternative space. I am Brittany, and we are here with another episode live right from the green couch with the Alternative Mason. It is one of my favorite months actually out of the year, March, because it is Women's History Month and it is also St. Patrick's Day this month. And as you know, Banrion is actually an Irish American, all-female led company. So who knows better than the Irish than picking yourself up from the bootstraps and, working hard. So, the Irish, like I said, we know all about it. So really, really excited to have our next special guest on today, Stoy Hall. He knows all about picking yourself up by the bootstraps as well. So I'm really excited to dig in deep with Stoy and find out more about his background and, all the exciting stuff that he's working on today. So thank you, Stoy, for coming on and taking the time with us to chat today.
Absolutely. And it must be just your month. I mean, to be Irish, women owned, it is your guys' month. So it's going to be fantastic.
I know. I'm really excited for what's ahead. I've got green on today and, so excited for this month and all the exciting things we've got going on. So I want to share a little bit with our audience, just a little more about your background. So you are a pioneer, in the world of financial planning, and, you're known for your innovative wealth management approach, your dedication to financial literacy, and you're also CEO of Black Mammoth and the founder of Kala Capital. And he emphasizes inclusivity and holistic client well-being. Your philosophy transcends numbers, focusing on emotional intelligence and in financial planning. You're a devoted father, and you embody the values of both personally and professionally, integrating family, education, and happiness. I also am curious about your culinary explorations that you have too, and how you're bridging that with finance. So really excited to dig in, Stoy. Why don't we just start with, you just telling me a little bit about your background and how did you even become interested in the world of finance to make this a career in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. It started when I was young. I grew up with a family that just really wasn't financially literate. I like to call it education now as opposed to literacy, but didn't really have the foundation of what the hell money is and how to use it correctly. My mom and my grandma at one point were business owners and didn't really knew what the hell that was growing up, but I loved to help out. And when I grew up, I recognized that there's a lot of people out there that were, I guess, more successful, right? When you're young, you have no idea what the hell any of that means, but you start to see like they have better cars, they have a bigger house, they go on trips. And I always recognize like why, like what's different from them and us, right? Growing up, a lot of my friends were them. A lot of their families actually, I stayed at their house a lot in high school. So like I knew them as people, but didn't understand what was the difference. Like, what's the disconnect? And so I ended up going to Drake University to play football and got my degree in finance, minored in business law and insurance. And I knew besides playing sports was my way, out of my situation was I needed to figure out how to help people with money. So I thought I was going to get my accounting degree. First test got a 40%, said, yeah, we're not doing accounting. We're moving the hell out of here. It was terrible too. It was like a blank piece of paper and you had to put together a balance sheet and income statement. And I was like, well, I got my name. That's about it. I got the date. It's like, what the hell do we do here? So I've quickly learned that I don't like necessarily that side of the game, although I do like it more nowadays. I wanted to be able to, how do we learn all of this stuff, right? Not the big words, none of all that stuff, because I feel like our industry loves to throw out giant words and, always talking alpha and beta and, financial statements and all that stuff, which really is just an overcomplicated thing of saying your money in, money out, and how risky is it? Um, And so while I was at college, I worked at the Boys and Girls Club for 4.5 years. And I was the teen, what was that, my title? My title was Teen Development Officer, which was basically I babysat the teens most of the time. But I really fell in love with those kids and getting to know their background. And it triggered me to realize that I grew up the same way they did, with, parents working as hard as they can, trying to just live every day, every month, but never getting ahead. And I never could grasp like why. And so I turned to financial literacy at that point in time and was like, the more education and conversations we can have around money, the more hopefully probability wise that they become successful.
Mhm.
And then I quickly graduated and started in the insurance realm, which was great. I learned a lot, went to a lot of conferences, a lot of leadership, but quickly found out that insurance isn't the end of the game, right? It's part of the pie, not the thing that we all focus on. And so from there, really started hitting home on financial planning. Left there in 2017, joined a firm Centric. They're out of Houston and love those guys. But in 2020, I just had to get away because I wanted this concept of a modern family office to really hit home. And that's what Black Mammoth is. We are a modern family office. Take the family office concepts of those who have 25 million or more and charge them a big fee, and we just modernized it to almost everyday business owners, really. And I really wanted to hone in on women and minority business owners because obviously that's what I grew up with. That's who I relate to, and I believe needs the most help. And so from there, just kind of took off and ended up having, Call a Capital. We have legacy fiduciary services. Really, anything you would need in a family office setting, we somehow have grasped that, and that's kind of where we sit today.
That's awesome. Well, that's such a great journey. I mean, especially so much you've accomplished too. You're still seem so young, so at such a young age. That's awesome. And that you had positive female role models in your life that were running businesses. Perhaps they didn't know always the best, financial choices, as you said, but they sound like very strong women that were excellent role models for you. So just rewind a little bit more though about that background and how it really shaped you as a person. What kind of conversations were you having in your household at the time? Maybe, they didn't, your mom and family didn't always, like I said, have the a clear path with like
Mhm.
financial freedom and stuff, but they were business owners. So what were those conversations in your household growing up like?
They were really non-existent, like most households. There was no conversations besides, oh, we got to pay taxes, or I have to go do this because we need the business type of thing. And so it was really more negative based than anything. But it, I'm always a very curious person. I like to learn a lot and learn more. So for me, it triggered me to go, but why? And like ask questions, but they didn't have answers. Especially when it came to like taxes and they, kept doing their books. And I'm like, what is that? And they really didn't have an answer. But I was like, there has to be an answer. You have to do it. So what is it? So for me, that piqued more of my interest and intrigue and probably led me to always wanting to figure things out ultimately, which is really cool because that's rooted into everything I do every day, right? For my clients, I'm going to figure it out, right? I'll vet people out. I'll go get it figured out, and then we can implement it. And so I think that's a lot where it drove home for me, but it
Yeah.
wasn't because I learned directly from them. It was more indirectly.
Yeah, fantastic. I actually similar for me. And I feel like a lot of people that I have here, though, on the show, a lot of people they had a parent or they had someone that was, in the financial industry in some capacity or
Yeah.
some way. So those conversations, that path was already, basically an option for them. But I would say I identify so much more with your story because I did not come up with a background with that like that either, and everything was fear-based in my household. So I really stuck my head in the ground for many years of my life and went through a very traumatic financial experience, actually, that really put me on this whole new path and a whole new journey. So that is actually something I've heard you talk about is really getting to the core of someone's financial background and what their first introduction is to money,
Mhm.
specifically trauma, a trauma-based experience to money and how that influences, our decision making. So, can you share more about that and your approach?
Yeah. It's really an alternative approach. I believe nowadays, and a lot of my colleagues that I bring onto, my podcast and Shana and everything is we're developing more of that mindset, right? It used to be about just returns, assets and returns. Really, that was our industry. That's what's driven. That's what the world really knows is you only can have a financial advisor if you have money. That's usually the answer everyone gives. I don't have enough money to work with you. And I backed that out and said that can't be how it goes. It cannot be how the ultra wealthy become wealthier. Like that can't be the end all be all. Like what is really the root thing that's going on? And for me over time, it finally came down to it's their ability to make emotional decisions and take the emotions out of it, right? Whether they have a team telling them, hey, we're not doing that, or they've just learned over time and have made mistakes and learned from it that you can't make decisions based upon your emotions. You need to run everything kind of like a business, right? And make business decisions. And that's
Mhm.
really the biggest disconnect is majority of us think we control our money and we don't. We really don't. No one really controls their money. Money controls us. It's how our society's built now. In order to make it more advantageous for us, we need to set parameters and we need to stick to that plan. Sometimes that plan is investing. Sometimes that plan is buying a business or insurance or going traveling, right? It just has to be dictated around that, which all comes back into our emotions, right? What makes us happy? And it's not getting 10%, 100% returns. Like that's not it. It's ultimately like, can I do the things I want to do when I want to do them? And that's like true wealth. So I always go back to that and lead with, hey, how'd you grow up? Like kind of like you just asked me, how'd you grow up? What are some things that when you talk about money, do you like talking about and do you not like talking about? And 98% of the time has zero to do with investing or any investments or anything that deals with money. It's always some experience. And I've started to recognize that. And so when you focus on that, it takes away all of the glitz and glamour of what our industry thinks is important and it kind of just pushes it aside. And the core reasoning for everything is how are they in their plan emotionally? Then we can go ahead and do investments and insurance and all of that stuff. But if you don't have you figure it out, those plans kind of go to die pretty quickly.
So, what is your after identifying what could be a triggering point, a traumatic financial triggering point, how do you recognize bridging that gap then for those emotional decisions that we find ourselves in when it comes to our decision making with money?
Yeah, it's a journey. It really is. It's a wealth journey. It takes a while. And so initially with clients, I just say, blame me. All right. Put it all on me. Blame me for the reason because they need to get out of the decision making. They need to get out of the opportunity to go against whatever it is. And typically people right away will listen and go, okay, fine, you do it. And if it goes good, bad, or indifferent, like it's Stoy's fault, right? It's a very easy scapegoat mentality, which for a long term, if it goes over too long, then it's kind of a negative way of doing it from a psychology perspective. But for a short period of time to get them to relax, put down their guard, and learn a little bit, I tell them to blame me. Just blame Stoy. It's fine. You'll be okay. And then from there, it just starts to meld into their decision making. And they naturally, us as humans, naturally want to do the right thing. But usually it's disorganization, not knowing what to do, when to do it. And third, having someone say, it's okay, you can do it. Like just do it. Right.
Yeah. When did you start Black Mammoth?
Technically 2020, September of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
In the pandemic. What was that like starting a business during the pandemic?
It was it really was no different. Everyone asked that. I was like, I already I had my clientele base. I was meeting virtually most often anyway. And so it kind of just was like a name change and a name shift, right?
Right.
Um, but then it quickly picked up in terms of clientele because everyone was now dealing with some either, and I don't want to say mental health issues, but we're working from home. There's a pandemic going on. We don't know what the end's going to look like, and just more influx of those conversations, right? And then it just kind of just took off from there. And then now look at our industry. We're mainly virtual. And I think it's one of the greatest things to happen of the pandemic, right? I am thankful for the pandemic for mainly one reason, and that is our industry has turned virtual and we can now talk to a lot more people from everywhere.
I agree, and I hope it stays that way. I am not all for this big push that they are making for us to go back into the office. I'm not for it. We can do everything from home as long as we have, our the access to the internet.
I agree. I agree. And we can do these, right? These conversations. We all need to speak to humans. There's just
Exactly.
different ways of doing it now. And luckily, technology allows that.
Exactly. Well, what are some of the financial concepts that you use in Black Mammoth to demystify, you know, people's fear of the industry?
Yeah, I tell them stop trying to keep up with the Joneses, stop listening to the media. That's a very good start. And really start focusing on what you want to do. Our paths are all different. Our journeys are all different. You cannot compare, my situation to your situation. We might have similarities, of course, but you can't compare those two things. And so for them to really own their own path, which makes it really cool and really different than other conversations, right? I've got clients that what they want to do with their money is they want to invest in other businesses, they want to travel, and they really don't want to be involved with anything, right? They just want to live their life and invest in others. Some people want to build a business, right? And be a $1 billion business and reach internationally, which is amazing. And others are good with just where they're at, right? Taking their business and maybe scaling it up a little bit, but leaving the legacy to their kids. And those mindsets are totally different than the others, right? So what do we have to do and attack it from, more of a financial situation, and like what can we do to invest in things? It's different, right? Some of them are, I would say, although majority of my clients are all in alternatives, right? Whether that is other businesses, real estate, hedge funds, those types of ideas, because I believe most business owners' minds work that way, right? It's easier for them to understand the complexities of alternatives, but understand why more so than, the average day person, because they're involved with wearing 6,000 different hats. They're understanding or trusting a situation and a plan over the long term, whereas others usually hold that a little more to their chest. So that's really what that's about.
What do you think, advisors that perhaps don't utilize or take advantage of alternatives, what do you feel is the biggest hurdle with that?
There's two of them. One, they're scared to death of compliance, quotes. Like if you're listening, air quotes just got implemented there. They're scared to death of compliance. And then they don't want to learn, right? And that's typically because it's an older generation. Our industry is old, okay? Let's be real about it. And they typically do not want to learn the alternative side, right? And I speak a lot about this on my podcast. It's funny because traditional definition is really stocks, bonds, mutual funds, right? It's like three items. Alternative is literally everything else. It kind of
Right.
should be flipped. We should be doing everything else, right? And it should all be integrated at once.
Yeah.
And so really it comes down to scared of compliance because they think that they're going to be more liable, which some of them, sometimes you are. They're going to have to know more, which means they have to learn, right? And that's okay. That's our job. That's our duty, is to push our education, push what we know to figure out what's literally best for our clients. And you'll find more times than not, alternatives in some aspects actually fit a lot better than, building out some portfolio than traditional markets.
Well, obviously, we agree here at
Yeah.
Banrion.
Right.
So what other so you mentioned obviously you're having these discussions on your podcast. So what other ways are you trying to bridge that gap and that hurdle for people, for advisors to utilize more alternatives?
Really just calling it out there on the social media perspective, publicly having conversations about, alternatives. I really wish we had a different name. I hate the word alternative. I really wish it was like something else, but
Yeah.
here we are, thanks to our industry. For them to not be so wary and scared of it and understand that they're not all built the same. There are, and you guys have more data than I do, but there's hundreds of thousands of different types of alternative investments. So just because you had a bad taste of one because they had, you know, 2 and 20 in terms of performance and fees and all of that doesn't mean they're all built like that. Doesn't mean they're all hedge funds leveraging, out leveraging. Doesn't, there's so many different ones that you need to open your eyes because there's a fit for most of it. And I think that's what's the problem is we've been stuck to most alternatives only being some type of hedge fund and shorting most things because that's what's usually out in the media, right? Good or bad, right? And so I think that's like the thing we have to overcome, and we have to have more of these real conversations within our industry to kind of show that. And I love what you guys are doing because you're bringing more of that to all of us and recognizing and going, hey, by the way, there's opportunities everywhere. This is
There's an
how we can get
easier
to them.
way too.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yes, we're really excited to release our technology and everything we've been working on to make it a lot easier for advisors to, access those
Mhm.
funds and everything. So, and we obviously agree education is key. It is so important. And all the tools are out there, so all the tools are out there.
And they're only getting better, right?
Yeah,
With you guys pushing it and leading that charge, it's only going to improve and become easier. And one day, hopefully sooner than later, it's as easy as a click of a button like everything else. So we can all focus on the root thing, and that's everyone's emotions. And then we just click a button to get what we want done, as opposed to, some of the steps we have to go through on the alternative side right now.
yeah, yeah. Well, can you share a story, a success story that you have, perhaps where changed the mind of someone to really take a chance and to take a risk, and it turned out successful?
Yeah. One of my newest clients was working for someone, right? They have an autism clinic for the children, which is phenomenal. But had always been tooled around with by the owner saying, in years 3 or 4 or 5, you'll be able to buy it from me, right? And that's usually just a carrot on a stick that a lot of business owners do over their employees to keep them longer. And it was time. It was time for her to just either move on or buy it. And so we went through and took on that risk, right? Because as a normal W-2 salaried employee, typically you don't have a lot in savings, right? You don't have a lot of assets. And she was like, I don't really know how we're going to do this. And I said, I got you. I got your back. You run this business because I don't know anything about autism therapy, and we'll handle the back end and get this thing done. And it took us like 6 months to finally close. It'll be June 1st, will be 1 year anniversary. She's moved into a new clinic or a new building as of now. We're looking at buying one in the next 18, 24 months. She's got new staff, and um, finally just getting around to the new taxes. And it's been really cool to see her development from a manager role to like a business owner, and how much weight that changes. Yes, it sucks being a business owner. I say that all the time. Being a business owner sucks, but it is so enlightening and so enriching to help others and be the one that like really makes those decisions. And so now I say that, and I have another client doing the same thing. We're looking at buying, her owner out, and it's just really cool to see the transition to that for someone to take on that risk, and for when I run the numbers to show them it's not really a risk. Like there's always a risk, but like it's minimal when you talk about that. You have an operational business that brings in 60K a month, basically. There's relatively low risk here, right? The risk is maybe you have to put in more hours than you have been, but it's there, right? Let's jump. And so we've jumped, and now this year we really get to focus on investing back into the business and then truly investing for it to grow on their personal side.
That's fantastic, and what a great business to support and,
Yeah,
to make a change in those people's lives, and that's what I love about finance the most is that it truly is life changing, once you can, understand. I fully believe, like you said, understanding our own relationship to money is first and foremost the foundation of everything.
absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about Kala. Tell me more
Yeah.
about.
So Call Capital is a hedge fund by definition, but we wanted to do something different and unique because we were doing it ourselves anyway, personally. So it's a combination of banking instruments, real estate, foreign currencies, and then, I don't want to say traditional strategies, but more of our, stock market strategies, if you will. And we were doing that like in different pieces and different buckets with my previous business owner. And it was like, why can we not combine this and do it for others? And so that's what we've been doing. We're in year 3, I believe. Technically year 3, but we've ran it for 4 years, 4 or 5 years now. And it's been one of the hardest, strangest, fulfilling things that I've ever dealt with. From you got to deal with compliance hurdles, legal issues, making sure traders are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then you've got investors and performance. It's been really fun and cool all at the same time. But that's kind of the basis behind what we wanted. We wanted something different that hits upon all of our clients, or our needs, but our clients' needs that we all like to do anyway. Why not do it under, one fund? And then Kala is means money in Hawaiian. And so we kind of wanted to tie that in. We go to Hawaii every year for a couple weeks. It's where, we would love to live. And so we just tied that into our brand. And it's been fun. It's been really fun.
I love that. I love it when a name has special meaning behind it. Ours, Banrion, it means queen in Irish and Gaelic. So little tidbit. So but you've been really busy. So when did you start that business?
That also technically started in 2020. I think the fund opened 2021, but we had been running it for about a year prior
Okay.
to that.
Yeah,
So really all at the same time.
you've been really busy because you also on Friday you just launched No BS Wealth.
Yes, that podcast finally got its website after 2 years. This is year 3. We finally launched that website, which has been
Okay.
really fun and in the making. And we're taking it to the next level, right? I've been talking about it for years that I have a community of people, right? Shana's one of them, of how we all operate together and help each other. But I, it's always been like an arm's length. I feel like we've never all of us come together and been like, we can do this thing together. And so I've now decided that No BS Wealth is going to have a community, and that community is going to be vetted professionals that I have vetted personally, that are there for the betterment of, well, our listeners, anyone out there. And as opposed to just being like, here's a referral to go meet somebody, right? Literally, we can schedule it for them, get right on there, show them everything we want to do as a person, and then just walk them through and saying, hey, let's go meet with Shana. Let's go meet with Brittany. This is what they're doing. As opposed to that, like, it's always uncomfortable when someone gives you a name and a number and like you're expected to go call them. Like it's
Oh, yeah.
right. It's like there it might be a connection and a referral, but it's still And
It's
I want to take that
out.
out of it.
Yeah. So what I mean, you're so passionate. What would you say drives you?
I want to see people succeed. Um, it's it's important that people are happy. And as humans, we all can be happy at the same time, right? I don't think there's competition in our industry. Everyone says there is. There's just too many people out there that need a lot of help. And the more people we can help, the better we all are, right? That takes away economic divide. That takes away racial divide, gender divide. Those all become very minute when we're all doing well and we're all happy together as a community.
Amen to that.
And we don't have that right now. And it's pretty sad. And so I know every day, like I know I'm gonna wake up and just go at it. It's heavy, right? It's heavy to take that on and to always try to fight every day for it. But someone's got to, because there's got to be something different specifically in our industry that can happen that isn't so negative and so what's the word, aggressive towards different genders and races in our own industry, let alone the world.
And on that note, what are you doing to help, the industry be more inclusive and to reach more, minorities, minority
Yep.
groups?
I'm in our own podcast, No BS Wealth, we have a minority CFP series. There's not very minor. I think it's, don't quote me. I'd have to look at the percentage, but it's like under 10% minorities.
Mhm.
I think if we throw in women, we're maybe reaching 11 to 19% somewhere in there of CFPs, which is insane to me. So I've launched that to really speak more and spread the message. The
Mhm.
other is when I go to events and the people, my colleagues, is to step in when there is a conversation or a situation happening. And I believe that as a male, let alone a black male, we have to step in situations that we see at conferences, that we see in public, and be the ones to step in and say, that's no, we're not doing that. Right. And make it known, not the good old boy, like take them to the side and talk. When it's happening, sit there and say, no, we're not doing this. And as more of us stand up to do that, it's going to change the demographic of one, our industry, but two, just us in general. And that's really what I'm trying to voice as much as possible with sharing and yelling from the rooftops and being involved with, we got to step up and do the right thing at that time, not behind the scenes later.
Absolutely. What is one thing that you could encourage other people in the industry to go out and do? One small little thing you would encourage someone to do for the month of March that they can do to support women in the financial industry?
If you're anyone who has in our industry who has any sort of social media presence or podcast or newsletter or whatever, go reach out to any woman business owner in our industry or not and have them on as a guest. Okay. And blast them everywhere possible. If you do not, and you don't have any of that, then find those who, if they're business owners that you know or women that you know, send them to me, send them to us that have podcasts. We'll do it for you. But I really want to be as loud as possible. And the only way to do that nowadays is let's get it out on social medias because it lives there forever.
Yes, allowing women to have more platforms for their
Yeah.
voice. It's not that we don't have a voice, we just need more platforms. So,
Correct. Yes.
yeah. So, as a father, what are you teaching your children?
Teaching
At
them
and what is is there ever an age that's too early to introduce financial tactics to children?
I don't think there is once they understand what the hell it is. We started our boys relatively young, and I don't remember how old they were, maybe three-ish, with whenever they got money, right? Gift, present, didn't matter. However they earned it, however they got it. As soon as it came in, I would give them 50% of it. And the other 50%, I would say, I'm putting into an account you can't touch until you're 21. And I
Nice.
use that as kind of like tax, although I'm not really going to tax them because I think that's just rude. But it's forcing them to understand that, like, when I get money in, some of it has to go away and some of it I can use for whatever I want. Right. Now that they're, well, whenever this goes out, my youngest will be 7 on March 20th. And my oldest will be 10 in July. So now that they're about 10 and 7, we actually use the Greenline app and they're able to save and invest themselves when the money comes in and set up it like a job, right? So I believe in jobs. I also believe in chores. Those are two different things. And so we just recognize that and have them continuously investing in the way they want to. And so when they go to invest, I tell them invest in things that you know and you like or that we buy, and they'll bring it to me. And then I go to TradingView and we'll go look at the charts and we'll go look at the value. And then they're able to push the button and start investing into whatever they want to invest in, right? And I let it happen, good, bad, or indifferent.
That is fantastic. So young, learning that. That's great. What is the app again that you said that
Green
they
light.
green light? I haven't
Yeah.
heard of this. What
Look it
is
up. It's pretty cool. I think it's like $5 a month per kid, but that's almost irrelevant. But it has also educational platforms in there, so they can do like fun games and courses, right? On top of the fact that, like, as a parent, we can approve and deny everything, and they have access to purchasing items. Like my oldest, he bought Netflix and is up like 35%, and he's thrilled. Now he only put in like $1.50, but still, hey, you're
seeing
winning.
that
Okay.
grow? It's
Yes.
exciting. It's so exciting
Yes.
to learn that so young. It's so
Yeah,
great. It's
it
fantastic.
is.
What do they want to be when they grow up?
That just changes a lot. It's been firefighter for both of them at one point. My youngest wants to be a chef, which is cool because that's what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Um, but the oldest wants to be a YouTuber. He doesn't know what though, what type of YouTube. We started a channel in December. We haven't updated any posts yet. I've been editing film with him.
Maybe a cooking one, the whole then
Could be
all
could be
be
a
involved.
cooking. He told me he
Yeah.
wants to do a cooking one, him playing games, and then him reviewing stuff and not
I
do anything financial because it's boring and no one watches it. And I said, "Yeah, tell me, son. I know about it. My YouTube channel doesn't grow very fast, so I get it."
Well, I mean, he could grow a following and then get that following on over to yours. Those kids are
Yes,
making a lot of money on YouTube.
they
It's
sure
insane.
are.
Just for playing or yeah, or reviewing stuff. It's
Yes,
insane.
it really is.
Oh my goodness. Well, what on another note, what are some of your favorite alternative vehicles that you like? Some favorite ones?
Real estate in general. I really, really do love real estate. And that's even from a REIT perspective, if not, but like just honestly, real estate is a really good one. And the reason for that is obviously depreciation and all those things, but it's the ability for that to be another business in itself when you invest in all of those. And there's one investment in this world that we all can agree upon that won't go away, and that's some type of real estate because we all have to live somewhere or we all have to work somewhere. Now that's changing a little bit, but we all have to do those things. And so if you make the right choice, then it's an asset that's always going to be there. It's not going to go away. It's not going to change. And so I'm really heavy into that side of it. And then I just love to learn like the different aspects. I've been diving in obviously some foreign currency stuff. I haven't gotten into crypto much at all, but those types of avenues, and then whatever you guys throw at me.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, well, is there anything else you would like to add? What else you got working on? What else you got working on that you haven't shared with us?
Yes, those are really the big ones. There's another one that I'll talk a little bit about right now, but I want to
Yeah.
get Shane on it as well. It's in tune with that community concept,
Mhm.
but I'm wanting to do like and I hate the word webinar, but I'm wanting to do like a quarterly call, like a quarterly live call with, like myself and Shayna and you and some others that have this no bullshit approach to how we do all our lives
Yep.
and really truly answer some of these questions that I know other advisors are out there asking. I know clients are, and really doing it from a perspective that isn't so professional, right? I think that's how we can relate to a lot more people
I agree.
is coming down and just being real.
I completely agree. I mean, as someone who was doing something entirely different before, I mean, it was such a foreign industry to me, and it was my own internal fears that I had built and everything like we talked about that I had to get over. And so um yeah, I think just keeping that conversation, it's so crucial.
Yeah.
So
So that's enough for one. That'll probably take a little time, but we'll get there.
yeah, yeah. I think that why do you think the industry, throws out all these big terms and big words that makes it intimidating for others? Why do you think that is?
Truthfully,
Mhm.
but I don't even know if it's conspiracy, but put my hat on of why our industry loves power and control. Money is power and control. And so if you can speak above others, you naturally put them in a defensive perspective of I'm not good enough or I'm not smart enough to deal with you, so I'll just listen. Doctors have that same persona a little bit as well. Attorneys definitely do too, where they have the more power and control, and the more that they can stand above you, the less you're going to question what they're doing. And that's why our industry has done it so far in the past. That's why we haven't been very transparent with a lot of things because we don't want them to see that really what we do is relatively simple. And if you learned it, you could do it yourself.
Absolutely.
But there's this really big push now of transparency and showing the ins and outs. And I mean, I do it all the time. And still people are like, that's cool and all. I don't want to do what you do though. So I'm going to hire you still. but I love that you're telling me what's going on.
Exactly, having the option or, having the option to have access to, information about your own money and to understand it, absolutely, it's so key. You may not wanna do it yourself, that's why we still need
Right.
we still need advisors, we still need we still need, everyone in the industry, but to be able to access that knowledge is so crucial, so important. How do you see alternatives evolving in the way that we approach them as things are becoming more accessible and as education becomes better? How do you see the world of alternatives evolving?
I mentioned it before. I believe it becomes not traditional and alternative. It just becomes
Part of the norm?
investments or whatever. Within the next probably 5 to 10 years, honestly. I think right now, a lot of us say that you should have 20 to 30% roughly in your portfolio in terms of alternatives. Your institutions and your ultra wealthy probably go 50 plus, because if you tie again hard assets into it, it really ramps up that number. I believe that's all what it's going to be. I think it's going to be intertwined to the point where it is 50% or more in alternatives for most. And every part of their portfolio is integrated. I mean, you're seeing it. We don't have all the data on this. Tyrone Ross would a little more than us, of the crypto side of things too. We don't have the numbers on crypto of how much that's in someone's portfolio right now, right? And
Yeah.
that's technically an alternative. So right now, are they already at 50%, 30%? We just don't have the data. But I really truly believe in the next 5, 10 years, almost everyone's going to have roughly 50% of their portfolio in some form of alternative,
Hmm.
and it's going to be intertwined with that's just how we that's just how we invest. Like, just normal. There's no thinking about it in a different traditional model. It's just, this is your portfolio.
Do you have what are some of your favorite books or favorite perhaps podcasts, for education on alternatives?
Besides yours, of course. What does it call off the top of my head? Alternative Mindset's one of them. Let me see. I guess I don't have it on my bookshelf right now. Um, but there was one guy, what's it called? It's something about allocation, but it's behind the mindset of allocation, and it focuses on like your mind when it comes to investing, which is a
Mhm.
very alternative way of thinking about it, and it eludes more people to different types of alternative investing, right? For example, I just had a client or a prospective client come by and say, like, I want to do ESG funds and I want to give back as much as possible,
Mhm.
right? That's very difficult to find in just the normal public sector that allows them to control and insight into actually what they're investing in, right?
Right.
And I know there's probably a handful off the top of my head of alternatives that are super ingrained and super transparent of what they're investing in their outcomes, as opposed to some of these funds that are dipping their toes into it, but turn around and are investing in tobacco companies that you just didn't know, right? And this book kind of dives into someone's philosophy with what do they want to invest in, and
Right.
your decision of what you want to invest in, no matter how detailed it is going to point you to the alternative side.
Nice. Nice. What about, because I do have listeners on here that are actually just new to this
Cool.
entire what would you recommend where they can start for just basic education and for their own personal finance journey?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because it took me, God, I'm trying to remember all the things I had to go through to learn.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
because
and
you
it was
pulled yourself up from the bootstraps.
right. It was a lot. Honestly, reaching out on social media to us that are involved and just ask and talk is one great, definitely one great way. I would stay away from, I know a lot of information comes from Reddit. I would stay away from those because we're not really allowed to be on there from a regulatory perspective.
Okay.
Um, but I would definitely dive into us. The other thing I would start to just really just Google it. Go to Investopedia, and type in hedge funds. Pay attention to what's going out in the markets of the news, right? I hate news, but
Yeah.
you'll get to like get a glimpse of, this hedge fund did this or this fund did this, and
Mhm.
take that time to take those terms and go throw it in Investopedia and just start to pick up on the language a little bit.
Mhm.
And then once you pick up on the language, and if you are a nerd, then you could start to get into their disclosures and their documents that are public anyway.
Mhm.
And then really start to hone in on those. I know I do it for other advisors too. I do PPM reviews as well, just to give an understanding what those disclosures are. So if you're an everyday person, I know I'm throwing out big terms and I usually don't like to, literally Google it and throw up Investopedia. And then when you get to a point where you're like, I don't know what this means, just reach out. I'll answer it. You guys will answer it. Reach out to us, but don't be afraid to, because in our alternative world, there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of different ways things could happen. It's not as simple as saying this is a stock and this is how it works when you buy and sell it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. That is all great advice. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. I learned so much from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Want to add anything? And yeah.
No, we're good.
Well, all right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and listening. I just had such a great time talking with you today and learning more, about what you're doing. You're so busy. You've got so much going on. So really excited to see all the stuff you've got going on for the future too. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time right here live on the green couch. Have a good one.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparisons are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.